dough bread. So let me start by flipping and getting this out. This is an Italian herbs and cheese bread. So I've got Parmesan, garlic salt, and Italian spices in here. We're going to flip it out on my parchment paper here. And we'll give this a nice little score on here. Brush my flour around a little bit. And then we're just going to do kind of a nice crisscross. And then do some designs down the side. Make it pretty on here. And ooh, I can smell the Italian spices. They smell wonderful. And then we'll put this in our Dutch oven that is nice and toasty hot. And we'll let that start to bake up. Okay. Get my little mitts on. Put it in my toasty hot Dutch oven here. I'll slide this guy in right there. We're going to put our lid on, and then we're going to bake this for 500, or bake it at 500 for 20 minutes, and then we'll bake it at 450 for 20 minutes. My wall oven is on the fritz. We think it's shorted out. The control panel needs to be replaced. We had a technician out here earlier. So we're going to be using this guy. Not my favorite, but works. So we're going to have it in here for 20 minutes. I'm going to tell my husband, keep track 20 minutes. So we can take it out, because the timer on here, it doesn't really beat. It's really hard to set and beep well, and it's difficult. So I don't like it as much. But we got it in there. So 20 minutes at 500. So at 7:33, it should be coming out. What we're going to do is let's get our potatoes peeled and in our water cooking up for our mashed potatoes. Then we will start prepping our copper penny carrots, and then we'll make our seasoning for our lamb chops to sear off on there. Then after 20 minutes, we'll take our sourdough out, take the lid off, and turn the oven temperature down to 450 and bake at 450 for this. Hopefully, we had our technician out today to look at it, and hopefully they said, we had to get a whole new control board, and of course it controls the microwave and the oven, so it's not one of those like cheapy fixes. You're like, oh, I couldn't have been a fuse or something like that. It's never that. It's never like it could be this $20 part. No, it's like the really expensive part. But hopefully it's ordered and it will get here sooner rather than later, so we can be back to normal things, But always an adventure. I always say Groundhog's Day is always an adventure for me. It's because, it just likes to tease me. It's my birthday eve, and all the crazy stuff happens on Groundhog's Day.
You had a question? Did your mom leave any muffin bottoms yesterday?
She was so funny. She just took a bunch of muffins with her. So she was like, oh, I'm not gonna, but I'm gonna take them home. So I have a feeling she just ate the tops of them and left the muffin bottoms. That's her way. Well, if I eat the tops, it's like eating half of a muffin. I save myself, and then nobody eats the bottoms. But last night's dinner was really, really delicious. I hadn't done a pork like that in such a long time. And there was like no leftovers, and the mac and cheese was amazing. Even though like Evie, who's my like picky eater, and she was like, I don't like mac and cheese. And I was like, no, you like my mac and cheese. And she's like, I don't know about that. And I tried, and she had like double servings of the mac and cheese. And then I look over there, and Jack is literally stealing mac and cheese off of Teddy's plate. So then Teddy needed more mac and cheese, and Jack needed more mac and cheese. So everything just disappeared on it. And Teddy and me, and they love the broccoli. He loved the broccolini. Lena loved the broccoli. So they had to kind of shake, decide who was getting which ones of it. But now we just were filled up with yesterday's dinner.
You got lots of early happy birthday wishes.
Oh, thank you. It's the eve of the last day of being 37. be 38 tomorrow. Won't be streaming tomorrow because it's, of course, it's my day. I get to be queen for the day. It was always our little tradition growing up is you got to be the boss. And when you've got a lot of siblings like me, when you get to be the boss, it was a much abused power. You didn't do anything for yourself that day. But tomorrow's my day. We're going to go out to eat and we'll just have a nice, relaxing there. Make sure I get my green tea frappuccino and everything. Okay, let's get these guys diced up and in our water, start cooking up on here. And my kids go back to school, so it was kind of perfect. They were off today, and we got the call today, and I was really thinking they were going to get another day off, but they're back in school. It was like they knew Mama needed a break. So kids are back into school, which means back to kind of early day, but it will be nice. It'll be a little bit of relaxing. And I always go out. I always pick kind of like the same restaurant for my birthday every year now. And it's because it's a really great one for the little ones. But we go to a hibachi because the little food show always keeps the littles entertained, which is always a big thing with Jack because he's not the best restaurant mate. And I get my sushi because I always have to order sushi as an appetizer. Lots of eel in every roll. And then I always get the most. I'm always I want the filet with scallops and shrimp. I have to have all those three. That's what I like. I'm already thinking about it for tomorrow. So, there, my little day off. And let's get these big guys going in nice chunks. We'll get one more. We'll get them up boiling. So we'll have some nice, lovely mashed potatoes here in no time. Then we're going to get our onion sautéing for our copper penny carrots, which they kind of look like copper pennies. I'm using rainbow carrots, so they're not quite all their copper penny carrot looking, but you'll peel them and then you kind of dice them in a little disc way. And then they'll be in a nice kind of savory, sweet stewing. So let's get our potatoes in. There we go. And then because I always overjudge a little bit of my liquid, we're going to pour off a little bit off the top. There we go. And that can be there waiting. And you know what? Since I'm not going to be sauteing off my lamb chops just quite yet, I'm going to start on here with my onions for my copper penny carrots. We're going to start with our onion here. And I'm going to dice it up and we'll let it start to kind of caramelize, get a natural sweetness out. Then we're going to add in some celery, some sweet peppers, and then we'll get our carrots peeled and ready. And we're going to make a lovely kind of sauce using some Worcestershire and some mustard, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of tomato paste. So it's going to have a tangy but sweet base to it. It will be lovely. And I'm just going to dice this up. I'll do a good amount because I love a good onion. Okay. And I forgot to set out my oil, so let me go grab it over here. Add a little bit of oil in our pan. I'm going to say about a tablespoon to start with. This is a 3-quart saute pan, so not a super huge one, but it has about a 10-inch base to it, so a good size. And we'll get this in there. And then we're going to get our celery prepped for this. And this is one of the few dishes that I'm not actually going to kind of cut my celery in half. I like these semicircles for this, kind of goes with the copper penny kind of shapey on there. So we're going to actually just keep them, our stalks whole. Makes them look a little cuter. So we're going to get this. I just have 2 stalks. You don't need a whole lot, but it's going to give you a nice, really aromatic, savory flavor that will go with these carrots. And there we go. Once our onions kind of get little, flavored up, we'll get those in here. And then we're going to do our peppers here. Kind of de-seed them. And I'm going to cut these in little circles as well, just to kind of keep with the whole little kind of copper penny look to it. Now, if you like a little bit of heat, you could use like a jalapeno or poblano. I'm just going to keep with the sweet because I like it a little bit more mild. But it will be cute little circles in there. So we have that. Let me get some tongs and we'll give our onions a little stir here. There. And then I'm going to mince up some garlic and then we'll prep up our carrots. That smells delicious. Something just about onion sauteing is just such a wonderful scent. And we're going to use a couple cloves of garlic.
You have a question? What's your favorite season of the year?
My favorite season of the year is fall. I think because it leads so much anticipation. I love Halloween and I love, it like leads up into the Christmas season, which I really love, like winter and just that Christmas time period. Once Christmas is over, it's like winter, it's cold and whatnot. But fall is the start of it all. And it's such a gorgeous and pretty time, with the leaves changing and pumpkins and squash. Cooking is delicious at that time. I love the food. And it's like the perfect weather because, as you know, I really enjoy wearing sweatshirts year round. And fall is like the perfect time for that, where I'm like appropriately dressed, essentially that I'm not too hot or too cold because it's a sweatshirt day every day in the fall.
And playoff baseball.
It has nothing to do with baseball at all. In fact, it probably ruins the fall for me. I don't mind football. Baseball, so boring. So boring. But I do love fall. And it's just such a cozy time of year. There's the romantic in me coming out, You always have like, I'm going to be picturesque. We're going to go to the apple orchard and the pumpkin patch. And we do. Let's get our onions. Like we've got a good caramelization going here. I'm going to turn this down now to about a 4. Now that our pan's nice and hot. And we'll get our garlic in here and then we'll throw in our celery and let that saute for a second. Yeah, let's give this a good toss. And then we'll give our carrots a nice peel and get them sliced up for this so they can start stewing in our sauce that we're going to make here in just a second. Here. So we'll let that, your garlic just needs about 30 seconds to a minute on its own. Give a nice little good saute on it, crisp up, and then we can start adding in. We'll add our celery for about a minute and then we'll add in our peppers. Get the rest of this garlic in there. Here.
Do you ever use a Blackstone or a griddle pan?
So when I'm cooking at my parents' house, they have a nice little cooktop, and I do love cooking on that. My goal is hopefully this summer, hopefully it will happen, is to do a nice little renovation of our outdoors, put an outdoor kitchen, build, I'm going to say renovation. I'm going to task my husband and my oldest son with that. And hopefully, that's kind of my plan to do is to get, I want to do a little rearranging, move some garden boxes around, and kind of build out a nice outdoor kitchen outside.
Right now, you don't even have a dryer and an oven.
I know. Right now we're like losing appliances left and right here. Earlier in the week, our dryer stopped, like it air dries, but the heating element stopped. But it happened in the middle of the ice storm, so I'm like, oh, well, I can't order it yet because I'll never get it out here. That's the last thing I want is somebody trying to deliver a dryer when my driveway is still a sheet of ice. So I was like, oh, happy early birthday present. And then this morning, our oven unit kind of came out, and that's going to be a pretty penny to fix. So it's like, happy birthday again. Grown up presents are the best.
What are you feeling?
We have our rainbow carrots here. So I've got some white, yellow, purple, and then orange. And then we're going to just slice these up to make our little kind of carrot pennies that we'll get going. So, it could have been worse. We didn't have, we were very lucky through our ice storm, except apparently our appliances were not so lucky on there. And of course, you know how it is. It's, they make those warranties and they run out right after the warranty because our wall unit is only, a couple, it's like the same age as Jack because we got him around the same when I gave birth to him. I think I ordered them not like right when we got out of the hospital for our kitchen because I was like, oh, please be done. So they're like 26 months old, but without a control panel, it doesn't work.
Do the rainbow carrots taste any different?
No, not really. They are just pretty. I will say the white carrots are not quite as sweet as the orange. Orange are the sweetest, but it is very negligible in the difference for it. They taste like a carrot. And then when you're making them with, we're going to be adding in some brown sugar and base to this. You really can't tell the difference to it. They just look pretty. I will say when you're working with purple carrots, a lot of times the purple carrots, when you're done cooking, they are actually brown and not purple. So not as pretty as you think they're going to be. So we're going to take off the tops here and we'll slice these guys up. But we'll have kind of like Monopoly money instead of just good old pennies here. A little bit of rainbow. And good kind of a thickness to them, like a much thicker than a regular penny. But
how do you get the younger kids to not be picky eaters?
You know what? I made all of my kids' babies food from a young age. So they have always had a lot of different flavors. And then as soon as they were like chewing and stuff like that, they ate our food. I made it like a rule that I wasn't going to be a short order cook and that our family was going to eat one meal a night. I wasn't going to make separate meals for everybody. And so this just what they've grown up on. And so like my kids all love lamb chops and they eat scallops and salmon and all sorts of things. They're less of a picky eater than my husband. It's hard to break some of those habits that he grew up with, but I told myself, can't end up like him. And honestly, it's just exposure. And if they just know that they're not getting anything else outside of it, they'll eat it and they'll learn to love it. I always make sure that we have different components that they like we'll have sourdough bread and fresh fruit. So there's always, at least 2 components on our dinner table that every kid likes. Some love them all, some will go there, but I always have the rules. I want you to try it. So everybody has to try a bite of one, of everything every time, even if they say they don't like it. Because, kids' palates change over time. Something that you didn't like, you may like now. And so that's what I'm always telling them. I said, you know, your bodies are growing, your taste buds are growing. And so our rule is to always have an open mind and try things on there. You know, it was like, oh gosh, it took, I think 6 or 7 years to finally get my husband to try guacamole. And then he was like, what have I been missing out on my entire life? And I was like, see, but you know, so delicious. Here is our lovely copper pennies, or our little carrots that we'll be adding in here in just a second. And then we'll make our little sauce for them to kind of stew up in. It'll be nice and pretty. So, and they're going to be a nice kind of a stewed, savory, sweet and savory.
1 minute till it's out of.
Okay, 1 minute, guys. 1 minute to win it. Yeah, let's give this a good break, which is good timing. Okay. Give those a nice little toss up. And we'll let those saute for just a little bit, and then we'll make their sauce on it. All we're going to do this, I'm going to get, well, let me check my potatoes here. We're actually probably doing pretty good. I'm going to turn my back burner on. We'll turn this guy off, and I'm going to switch my potatoes back here. That way I'll have a nice front pan for my lamb. And then we can take out our sourdough. Okay. See, my husband, he's good for something. He's a good timer.
Do you ever make desserts on stream?
I do. Typically, when I make desserts during our lunchtime stream, just because dinner is typically a bit more involved than my lunch time. And most of the time, our desserts are a mixture of, you know, I'll do muffins and bars and cookies, but my kids like to have them when they come home from school. Look at that nice little pop out the edge there. Gorgeous.
Follow-up question, do you ever make lemon tarts?
I do make lemon tarts, and I think my husband could answer this on his own. I make lemon tarts twice a year, sometimes more if he's well behaved. I make them for his birthday and for Father's Day. But you know, I'm going to turn my oven down to 450, so from 500. I'm going to bring it right here. And guys, 20 minutes and counting. So 55, I'm going to move my little top out of here. But yes, that was a good old oven time. You might earn some because you know how my dryer is on the fridge. So of course I don't just want, you know, a replacement dryer. I was like, oh, let me redo my laundry room because, you know, that's how my brain works something out. Let me make it a bigger project. Little project, big project. What should I do? Big project. So I decided to get, I'm getting the large capacity because, of course, we're a big family. So a large capacity washer dryer combo stacking unit. So we're going to take out these cabinets, and then we're going to build in this thing so I can have slots for laundry baskets and some more extra storage. Just makes it a little bit nicer, and mainly so I can put my laundry baskets behind closed doors. You know what I mean? I'm like one of those people who, if you can hide your mess behind a door or a cabinet, it's much nicer.
Oh, where'd you get your oven mitt?
Amazon. I have like lobster claws, bear paws, cat paws. I'm really hoping I'm getting my crocodile mitts that I hinted at my children that I wanted for my birthday. So we'll see. We'll see. Okay. Let me check my potatoes here real quick. See if they're ready.
You have a question. How many ovens do you have?
Well, currently I'm rocking one oven, but normally I have a second oven over here, which is an oven and then also a microwave on top of it. But today it decided it didn't want to work. Let's see if these are ready. Ooh, perfect. So grab a big one. If your fork pushes through, that means they are ready and you won't have lumpy potatoes. So we're going to strain these guys real quick, and then we can just let them sit with their butter and their cream for it. We'll have them to the side. I don't need that guy on anymore. Here. And nice and hot. But that was when we remodeled our kitchen. Before I had just we had a small kitchen. And it's like our kitchen was here to here. So the beams kind of show you how small our kitchen was. And I had one of those ovens that was a split oven. So it had a little oven on top and a big one. And I said, I'm going to have 2 ovens. And when we remodeled it, so I was like, I'll put one in our island with our stove and then I went over there because it's nice to have when you have a big family to have lots of ovens. Because I prefer that over there. It was my favorite. It's being difficult, but it will redeem itself in a couple of days once it gets a new control panel. Sometimes you just need a master reset. We're going to put some butter in here. I'm going to do about 5 tablespoons because I have 5 big russet potatoes in there. I'm going to dip that in there. We're not going to whip our potatoes until that butter is completely melted. And I'm going to give a little drizzle of cream as well because mashed potatoes, my favorite way to do mashed potatoes are russet potatoes, butter, and cream. We don't use milk because mashed potatoes are not a diet food. Mashed potatoes are an indulgent food, and I need an indulgent dinner tonight.
So what's your favorite meal to cook?
My favorite meal to cook is probably a good old ravioli. I do love a good ravioli, homemade pasta. It's a labor of love, but I love it, and it's delicious. So that's probably my favorite meal to cook. I love to make homemade pastas, and experiment with different fillings. I really, really enjoy that. But homemade pasta is a lot of work. Get these carrots stirred. Let's make our sauce, and then we're going to season up our lamb chops, and we'll start searing them off. They cook up pretty fast because they're small little guys in there. But let's get this sauce made for our carrots. We're going to use some fresh thyme in with the carrots. I'm going to grab a couple of little twiggies of this. We already have fresh garlic in there. And then we'll add in some tomato paste, a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, some sugar. I'll grab a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Worcestershire already has a little bit of vinegar in it, but I might use a little bit of apple cider as well. Gives it that sweet and tangy flavor with it, but then also has the nice kind of rich of the stewed vegetables. So let's get these guys in here. We're just going to leave the leaves full. That way they'll bring out their flavor really nicely. I'm going to do a little bit of black pepper. And then let me grab a spoon for my tomato paste. And I'm going to use like a heaping spoonful on there. This will thicken up when we add in a little bit of water here in a little bit. Give it a good stir around. Let it toast up. Let's see if we can get it all. There we go. We're going to let it toast for a second because heating up the tomato paste on your pan really enriches those flavors. Okay. And we'll let that sit for just a second. I finally got a new mustard because my other one was down at the very bottom. We're going to add in about a tablespoon of mustard. A lot of components into this sauce, but it makes this just so delicious. So, about a tablespoon of a good Dijon mustard. I'm going to do about a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Mix this up. We'll let it kind of heat up and cook up. And then we're going to add in about a cup of liquid, some brown sugar, and a little bit of chicken bouillon. And then we'll just let these guys simmer, and then we'll top them off with a little bit of green onions at the very end. Okay, let's get a measuring cup here. I'm going to grab a spoon. We just need about a cup of water. And when this water hits that tomato paste, it will thicken up and kind of create a nice thicker base. So it won't be super runny on here, but just do a little by a little to add it into our copper penny carrots here, which is why, you cut your carrots in the nice little discs and it looks kind of like you got a bucket of change. Oh, thank you. It's spinning. There we go. Add a little bit of our chicken bouillon and then our brown sugar, and then it's just time to let it simmer till the end. Sweet but tangy and savory, kind of all those really good flavors together. Just about a teaspoon of chicken bouillon. And you could also use just straight up chicken broth if you wanted to as well. And then let's get a little bit of our brown sugar. The brown sugar kind of counteracts the tang of the Worcestershire, which has a vinegar base to it, but also gives these a bit of a sweet flavor to it. I don't go too crazy on the sweetness. Some people will go really heavy. I'm going to do about 1/4 cup of brown sugar. And then if I need to add any more in later, I will. Maybe a little smooth, a little bit more. There we go. But a little bit of sweetness can go a long way. But I'm not one of those crazy over the top, super sweet. But we'll let it stew, and then if I want to add some more after it's kind of melded together, we will. And then we're going to get our lamb chops seasoned up here and seared off. But these are, again, our little copper penny carrots. They're nice, lovely stewed carrot and a lovely kind of sweet, tangy tomato, savory and sweet sauce for it. Okay. Set these guys right here. Let's get our oil. I'm going to pour it in here for our lamb chops here. We've got a good base there, but let's get these guys seasoned off. I'm going to mince up some fresh sage to kind of coat them and add some great flavor to it. And then we'll start searing them off. Now, sage is one of those spices. It's a very soft and fuzzy one. Kind of reminds me of lamb's ear. If you ever played outside when you were a kid and you found those nice big fuzzy leaves, sage is a lot like it. I always find it tastes really well if you have a chance to toast it up. Mince it small because if the fuzziness bothers you, which is kind of like me, I don't like peaches because of the fuzz. So you always have to take the peach fuzz off. But I have that fuzz, but it crisps up and adds great flavor. And sage and lamb, I just find are two lovely spices together. They just complement each other well. Lamb has a slightly more gamey flavor than like a beef. Not terribly gamey, but it's a really tender meat. And that sage just complements it really well. We're going to add in a little bit of some garlic here. And then we'll kind of rub this over our lamb chops with some garlic, salt, and a little bit of Worcestershire for it. So we'll make a nice little sagey garlic rub on it. And then we can start searing these off. Get this nice and done. We'll start heating up. I'm going to turn my pan on so that it will be nice and hot by the time we're ready to drop our lamb chops in, because you always want to cook your meat on a nice high temperature. Sears it off. It traps in that moisture, keeps it nice and juicy. Okay, should be just about ready for this. Okay, and then I'm going to season up my lamb chops here. So we'll just bring these guys a little bit closer for this. We're going to start with a little drizzle of Worcestershire. This is going to break through the natural fat in lamb, which is a slightly higher in fat meat, but that's what makes it nice and tender and juicy. We're gonna add a little bit of garlic salt first, and then we'll put our herbs on it, and then we'll flip it over and do the same on the other side. And then we can start searing them off. Okay, so let's do a little sprinkle, and then I'm going to rub it on, but I want to kind of divide it up first. You could also do dry herbs. I happen to have fresh sage around, so good to use. We'll pat it on. And then we'll flip these guys over. And we'll do the same on the other side. A little bit of Worcestershire, garlic salt, and then our fresh herbs. Here we go. Nice little drizzle over the top. And again, this is a vinegar base, but the acidity of the vinegar is going to break down the fat in the lamb to make it juicy. You don't get a tang in your meat, as you have just a nice savory flavor on it, but it is wonderful. And then we'll do the rest of our little herbs on here. And then we'll kind of pat them in. And then we'll get these guys start to kind of cook off. And this sage, these fresh herbs will also, cook to the bottom of our pan and kind of infuse in our oil as we cook. Okay. Get a quick rinse. And then we're going to sear these guys off. Our oil should be nice and hot. Give it a good swirl around. And let me grab some top. I have them set out, don't I? And we should get these guys off in. Now, I think I'll be able to get all of these off in here because lamb chops are a little bit smaller than a good steak, but have great flavor.
Do you ever make duck?
I do. I actually made duck at Christmas time. I made a nice lingonberry glazed duck for our smorgasbord. I do love a great duck. It was actually everyone's favorite dish on the smorgasbord. Beat out my Swedish meatballs. Was so just amazing and delicious on there. And I do love it. The only problem with duck is it's a very fatty bird, and they're not very big. So luckily with a smorgasbord, it's one part of many, and it works. But otherwise, I'd have to probably cook up, if we were to eat it just as our protein for all of us, I'd have to cook up like 2 or 3. Because my kids, I will say they picked every bone on that. They loved it.
You got a lot of comments from people they like the beef.
Oh, yes. I had dropped my daughter off she had soccer practice right now, and it was really, really cold out there. And I was like, oh, you're going to be nice and toasty or chilly. So I was like, oh, we're finishing, and then I got to go pick her up. She'll be done at like 8:30ish, and luckily practice is not too far, but she'll come home to a nice, hot, wonderful dinner for it. It's always a mission to try to get all of my kids to eat dinner at the same time. We typically eat later because of sports and schedules, and their sports schedules change, I swear, like every day. We've got a new schedule this week. Next week we'll have a new schedule, and then we have a new schedule after that. But hopefully, once we get out of the winter time, it gets a little bit more set up. But it's always competing with fields, and then when new sports come in, like baseball is coming in, and then they get priority because right now the girls, they're practicing on the baseball turf fields in the winter because we don't have very many soccer turf fields here. And you can't practice on the regular fields. So it's interesting how to kind of shuffle around and get everything for everyone going. It's a little crazy. Do some some salt here. We'll let that sit for a second. And then I'll whip it back up and see if we need to add any more to this. Rotate my pan here just a little bit. And we'll flip these in just a little bit. We'll grab our sourdough bread out in about 2-3 minutes. And we should have pretty good finishing on everything by then.
How many kids do you have?
I have 5 kids, and we've got 6 if you count my husband. Actually, I like to say sometimes I have 8 when I count my parents, because sometimes they're pretty helpless, and they need a lot. But I only have truly 5 kids. But then I have my dogs as well, so that's more. Delicious. I don't need to add any more sugar. I think I had just the perfect amount. Let's get our green onions ready to add in there on here. And then I'll flip my lamb in just a second. They're like Fort Knox to get out some green onions here. Give them a quick rinse. And let me see. I'm thinking we've got some of these that are ready. I can see some browning coming up. Beautiful. I'm going to probably flip them, and then I might move some around. With this little guy, if I can grab him. There we go.
Where do you buy your groceries?
And you know what? I actually buy from a lot of different places. I'm not a one-stop shop type of girl. I move around to lots of different grocery stores. What's on sale, convenience at times. I've been doing a lot of Amazon Fresh recently because my schedule's been a little bit crazy and touch and go. And they'll deliver right to my doorstep. And then I do Publix, Costco. I actually, as a one of my little birthday presents to it is I'm trying out the Butcher Box subscription. I really wanted to try it out. So I just kind of placed an order, and we should get it like later this week on there. I want to try out their proteins and see, it seemed for certain cuts of meat to be a really good deal. So I want to see when it gets here. I'll be interested to see exactly how good of a deal they are, and how well they are. Because that's sometimes depending on what grocery store I go to, I'll do Aldi's or whatnot. And, sometimes some proteins I can get everywhere, no problem. Other ones, it's a little bit more tricky to get the good cuts and the good places. And when you feed, I feed around typically 9 every single day, because I cook all my parents' meals, and then I also have my niece and nephew. So sometimes it's 11 mouths. It's nice to find a good deal. Save where you can.
What temperature are you cooking the lamb at?
So I am searing it off. I have it on about a 6-7, so a nice kind of good sear. When we take out our sourdough, I'm going to pop this in for just a few minutes to finish it off, and it looks like our sourdough is ready to come out. And that's going to allow the lamb to get a really good kind of medium rare temperature on it. Looking good. Look at this beautiful base here. Let me grab this one out. I always like to take my sourdoughs out of the Dutch oven because the Dutch oven stays hot and will continue cooking. But this is my Italian herbs and cheese sourdough. Look at those beautiful peaks, cooked up beautiful. Nice golden edge. It's filled with Parmesan cheese, garlic salt, Italian herbs, and seasoning. So it has a lot of great flavors.
Do you make fresh bread every day?
Not every day, but fairly close. I typically make some sort of grain, so I guess it could be rolls, breadsticks. I do yeast breads as well. So I have challahs, dinner rolls. So I do a variety of it, not just sourdough, because again, I have lots of different, variety of eaters here, and they all like, different types of stuff. So I always try to change it up and not just stick on one thing. That was a nice gust of warm air.
Are you cooking for the Super Bowl?
I am cooking for the Super Bowl, so I'm really hoping my oven is back and functioning by them because I typically do my wings on my air fryer setting there. And I have my whole little Super Bowl menu, so I'm really hoping it is. Otherwise, I'll have to pivot, and that's life. I'm adding in my green onions here to our copper pennies, but I always make my famous chili, which is an award-winning chili. It has won several awards. It's even won a $600 Gibson guitar. And so that's what I was saying. It's a pretty epic chili that I make.
Are you streaming?
I am streaming on there. And then I'll make my wings, a variety of wings, all of my dips and my little snacky things because it's a Super Bowl and the Super Bowl is about snacking and having everything. I'll make cornbread. So my daughter will be happy because that is a request that she gets every single day is, when are you going to make cornbread? And I'm like, I made it like 2 days ago. Yeah, but I think you should make it again tonight. Let's get this whipped through here.
Do your oven mitts come in a big set, or is each one a different pair?
Each one is a different pair, and I am always on the hunt for like the best and coolest oven mitt because, I like things to be pretty, but I like things to also have some personality. And an oven mitt is one of those things where you can have a personality because they can just go away, but you can have fun while you're wearing them. So I've got my mashed potatoes whipped up. I've got our things there. I'm going to grab these need about maybe 1 minute, but let's grab everything to kind of set up, and then our lamb chops should be nice and ready. We seared them off on both sides so they get that nice hot sear on them, and then I finish them off in the oven to prevent them from getting overcooked. It gives you that nice perfect medium rare on them.
How long in the oven and what temperature?
I have them at 450, so you want a good high temperature, and just about 5 minutes because these guys are little and you do most of the cooking through. If I do steaks, I do it a little bit longer on steaks or thicker cut pork chops, but this is a really great way to get the great sear on it while also getting a great cook on it, because I find if you try to cook your thicker cut meats all the way through on a pan, what happens is they tend to dry out because that high heat will leak out all of those juices. So here is our gorgeous lamb chops. Now, after I put them in there, I'm going to flip each one over because this bottom of this pan has all of those great and flavorful juices on it. And you can see it gives it everything a nice golden, delicious color to it.
And can you go over everything you added to the potatoes?
Yes, the potatoes, this is my trick to perfect fluffy mashed potatoes. You're going to use russet potatoes, and then you're going to, boil them until your fork can go through the biggest pieces. And then you're going to just add cream and butter and salt. And that is it. There we go. I'm going to get this last two flipped over. And in those juices down at the bottom, beautiful. Let's get ready to serve up dinner. And look at these wonderful copper kettle carrots. They are sweet and savory, and just a little bit of tang. They're just wonderful. And I'll bring my Italian herbs and cheese sourdough over here because he's a beauty. Okay, get this. And let's get a spoon for our mashed potatoes. And let's serve up our dinner. Make sure all of these guys are off. Oh, that is hot. I always got to remember when I take something out of the oven, put that on there. My reminder. Okay, let's start with the mashed potatoes. So for dinner tonight, we're going to start out with our creamy mashed potatoes made with russet potatoes, butter, cream, and salt. They make the best. And then we're going to serve that with our lamb chops that we seasoned with fresh garlic and fresh sage. And they're just absolutely fabulous. A little bit of garlic, salt, black pepper, and Worcestershire to keep them nice and tender and moist. And then we have our copper penny carrots, which are stewed carrots in a nice sweet and tangy yet savory tomato-based sauce We've got our rainbow there, celery, onions, some sweet peppers, but add just a bit of wonderful flavor. And then, of course, we are going to serve this with a slice of our Italian herbs and cheese sourdough bread, which is full of the Italian season, Parmesan cheese, and garlic salt. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I try to do live cooking shows every single day, kind of show you what we're making for our family and hopefully teach you guys something along the way. Again, we do upload all of our videos to the link on our page. So if you ever want to recreate any of these recipes at home, you can just go to our page and search for what we made. Our lamb chops with our copper penny carrots and our mashed potatoes and sourdough bread. And you can always watch and cook along with me again. We also have a link to our Amazon storefront that has all of our different cooking gear and gadgets in it. I've got my hex-clad pans, my all-clad pans, my knives, the cutting boards, all my different things that I use for sourdough I have in there for you guys to check out. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us.